back, Play On Canada podcast. From Play On intern to now being one of the brightest leaders in Canada tourism sector, Branden Pickard is the manager of tourism at the regional municipality of Durham. Welcome to the pod. Thank you so much for doing this.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. I guess it's great to be back. I've spent a lot of time at home lately, so some fond memories of playing hockey in the driveway and connecting back with the team at Play On Canada. So this one's going to be exciting for me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm very excited to get going on this podcast as well. It sounds like you have a couple of stories hidden up your sleeve right now, Branden. But first thing, we want you to settle something real quick. Me and Vince, we hashed this out in our intro of this podcast about whether or not we think. So I booked, for a little bit of a backstory, I booked my first ever vacation. And right now I've been working out, trying to get active, so I look good in the selfie picture that I'm going to take. Now, is this age me at all, Branden, or what's your thoughts on this? Or is this just me kind of goofy in my own head type of thing?
Well, I mean, I think the key takeaway here, since it's a sports-themed podcast, is you've given yourself a goal to reach to look good by the time you go on vacation. So I think if taking that real hot boy summer selfie is the goal, I absolutely think you're not dating yourself, and I'll cheer you on. Just I'll be on Instagram waiting to see it. Put it that way.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, me and Vince, Vince almost gave me a little bit of a look when I said that. I was like, I just want to look good for the picture, you know?
I was a little concerned with the hair because I know you got a haircut and we both got haircuts. So, there's some discussion going on.
Where's the vacation planned, or is it dependent on the selfie?
It's going to be in Banff, so I'm hoping to get a nice mountain background, really get to see the country for a little bit, see what it's like. I've never been out of Ontario, outside of Disney World in Chicago as a kid, so this is a real good opportunity for me to kind of explore, and I can't wait.
Amazing. I just came back from Banff recently, would highly recommend it. We rented an RV, worked our way through the mountains, national parks. It's incredible. We can certainly chat mountain life offline. I'd be happy to make some recommendations.
That's awesome. I think we definitely do have to get in the conversation here off the pod, but I'm sure our listeners, they kind of want to know a little more about you, Branden. So let's rewind the clock a little bit to your time with Play On. Kind of give me a description of what you had to do for the team and just your role and your interaction with Scott Hill playing in the streets. That's always a fun story I want to hear.
I think Scott would love if I gave him a compliment on his stick handling and scoring ability. So maybe I'll leave those comments for the end and talk about the actual experience working for Play On. It was really interesting. I'm a graduate of Brock University Sport Management program. And I was in my first year of university and quickly realized that, geez, some of my colleagues have some hookups in the sport industry. They might have streams they want to go on. I don't really know anyone. I should kind of get involved. So I got involved with student council, just volunteered with different organizations, got a feel for where I wanted to be. And I'd been living in London. I grew up in London, Ontario. I worked for Coca-Cola and Pepsi, just doing merchandising. So kind of early start into some really strong global marketing skills, just merchandising, working in the warehouse. So product placement, customer flow in stores. And so I did that in my first summer between university and then second year. I was like, I need to start getting some sport experience, put it on my resume. Everyone's looking for, a minimum of 3 years experience when you get out of university, and you're like, shoot, what am I going to do? So saw this opportunity for a 2-month internship with Hockey Night in Canada's Play On. I was like, cool, let's go for it. So I sent in an application and got a call from Scott Hill, and we met at a Boston Pizza, and I signed on as an internship. And we were based out of London at the time, holding the event downtown London. I think there might have been 10 or 11 events at that point across the country. So event logistics, working with the city, closing streets, vendors, marketing, sponsorship. It was kind of this full-on experience in the sport industry. And I was super excited to get into it because I was like, cool, I'll do this big event internship and kind of figure out if I like the marketing, the logistics, the operations. I'll figure out where my niche is in sport and kind of go from there. And I kind of realized I just love major events and every component within it. So it was a really, really cool opportunity. And I think, outside of event management and media and officiating, I think I spent most of my time working at Play On, doing all other duties as assigned. That is one line that just gets flexed so often.
Everybody has to wear a different hat, right? Or they have
Absolutely.
multiple hats.
That's the great thing about sport. Every day is a different day. Any lessons that you learned from your Play On experience?
I think I learned so much, working with Play On, working with a national network of franchisees. I mean, Play On was the platform for experience. And so different franchisees would lease the rights to the event. And then essentially they took the concept, which was festival, street hockey, bringing the community together. And they got to put their own stamp on it in each community, working with local musicians or artists, bringing different interest groups down. I think one thing that I really learned is the true power of sport and how it really does connect and unite us all. And we've kind of learned a lot of those lessons through COVID, or anytime we've experienced, something bad that happens in the world. We kind of all gravitate back towards sport. You kind of leave politics and religion and all of these other things kind of outside, and you just play whatever that game was. And so Play On was this platform to bring the community out, and it gave individuals an opportunity to play with their friends. You didn't have to be registered in minor hockey or soccer to be on a team. You could have your neighborhood friends that you played with after school, and you could organize yourself. And there was no coaches. It was 7 kids, 7 adults, 7 friends that just came to play a game that had typically been played in parking lots and on the roads and in your neighborhoods on this grand scale where you're amongst 500-600 teams, if not more, at some of the larger events, but you're still getting the experience of a smaller event because of all the touch points, when everything from marketing and activation comes together, and your entire experience from registering to showing up to the event to playing in the game to, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are still wearing t-shirts around that say champion on them. I see Play On shirts in the gym all the time, volunteer, security, official, people that volunteered, ref, they gave up time. Like it took an absolute village. And I learned that, many hands make light work. And one of the biggest lessons I learned was, leveraging teamwork and not taking every call on the radio, and knowing that there's a team around him. And when you have good communication skills and everyone's working together, typically, leading up to the event, there was different stressors as any large scale event does. You want to make sure everything goes right because people are spending money to compete in these events, and we have a national standard to deliver a great time. And so it became, very rewarding just seeing all that come together. And if we did it right, and we got it right most of the time, when we dropped the ball on Saturday morning, and when we dropped on Saturday morning, when we dropped the ball again on Sunday morning, in theory, the tournament would kind of run itself. And so many times we did. And that was, good leadership from the national office, very responsive organizers, enough people coming to help out. And it really made for these special, amazing moments that were otherwise just a Game 7 in a driveway. Now it was Game 7 in a driveway downtown London, Ontario. That's pretty cool.
There's a lot to unpack in that answer. But Branden, just seeing your title right now as the manager of tourism in the municipality of Durham, and also previously working for Play On, you kind of have your foot on both sides of the table right now. I just want to know a little more in depth about what it takes to kind of host an event like Play On in a different city, in a different town, and what kind of hurdles that need to be jumped on both sides working together.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to kind of take in a bit of a 360-degree tour of the industry. Even prior to joining the regional municipality of Durham, I was working for Tourism Kingston, and I was involved as the sport tourism development officer. And my job was entirely that, just bringing sporting events to the city. And I think there's a lot of factors that go into to hosting and being ready to host. And a lot of it's, looking at your availability. The nice thing about Play On is that you're doing it on city streets. And I think one of the challenges that I think we ran into along along the way with Play On at some points was the size and the magnitude of these events and the sheer volume of roads that were required to be closed at the time. So, multiple kilometers in a downtown core that cities have concern. And I think we were also hosting some of these events, prior to some transportation master plan improvements. So now if we fast forward to 2021 and we're looking at these downtown cores, which are kind of the best points. If you can be near a business improvement association, a core of commercial stakeholders, whether it's restaurants, stores, shops, things to do, maybe near a park, that's when Play On can really generate a lot of economic impact in the city because you're bringing people to the merchants. And I think in some places, we're seeing that infrastructure. We're seeing events like open streets and closing of the Gardner Highway and multimodal transportation, walking, biking, the subway system, light rail transit coming in. I think there's more ways to move people around the city, and people are becoming accustomed to that more European model where we can close streets to foot traffic. And so I think that's a big opportunity for some cities, and I know a lot of them are looking at them, and we're certainly seeing that in our communities. The more you can activate in your downtown spaces, there's a really great downtown theorist. His name's Roger Brooks. He's out of USA, and he talks a lot about making your downtown sticky, activating downtown. So always having programming, bringing people down. It could be a busker. You have 5 restaurants with patios. The town pays for a busker to play guitar there from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. You get the after work crowd that's maybe going for a drink, a light appetizer. That band is playing there. Maybe they stay for dinner, or it keeps people down there. So you do music, light shows, things that bring people downtown, an event like Play On, where it's not just about street hockey, it's about community coming together, live performance, sprawling space, activations from some of the sponsors. So you get that festival feel. And I think that's what we're all looking for. And not to mention, coming out of COVID-19, there's some reservations. I think we're all going to have reservations, and we're going to be at different segments. But an event like Play On, where you can safely spread people out in an outdoor segment, you can restrict divisions to common areas of a festival. So the more space that a city can make available, it's kind of a better experience for everyone. It's a better showcase, especially with the amount of media coverage that comes. So I think, there's a lot of opportunity, but I would focus on that festival atmosphere, especially relating to COVID and the want for outdoor experiences.
That is like an A+ answer right there, everybody. An A+ answer. You talked about community. How do you think Play On affects the community?
Honestly, I think that question's best. Just go ask somebody who's played in a Play On event. Like, I'll answer it as someone who's played in multiple games and staff teams. And honestly, I think so when I first started as an intern, I didn't know what to expect. Like, I played street hockey every day after school with my friends, like did tournaments. When I was at Brock, we ran this like underground hockey tournament. It was called the Sir Isaac Brock Cup. We usually got 4 teams, and the draft was based on like whoever had the worst equipment got to pick first. So one year I went to the draft as a goalie and just wore the worst equipment so I could draft first and got the pick. And so it's moments like this where you're taking this tournament that typically happens on a tennis court in St. Catharines or the back of a Walmart parking lot with nobody. Now you're taking that same group of friends and you're putting us in a downtown location, and we're playing with fences and sponsor boards and scoring in front of booster juice signs. I think you feel like a professional athlete. It takes you from that driveway to the feeling of being a Connor McDavid, former Play On player, or Mark Scheifele, also former Play On player. A lot of people came through because just like anyone who plays hockey, you probably shot around in the driveway or into a washer or dryer. So I think sponsorship is there's this platform. So you have the average individual is down here, your professional athlete is up here, and sponsorship is this space in the middle. So you could look at Nike as Serena Venus Williams as kind of the top professional athlete, and then you have your average tennis player. well, the average tennis player through sponsorship can go buy the Nike gear and make themselves look like Serena and Venus when they play on the court. No different than me wearing this Adidas golf shirt and feeling like a tour pro like Dustin Johnson, for example. So I think that's the cool part. It just invokes that feeling, and then you have people watching you and celebrating it. And there's trophies and there's music and, music playing like you're warming up for that big game. So I think Play On has so many great memories, whether you won, lost, hit the post on a penalty shot or a shootout, or a ref blew a call and your team lost because of that ref, and you and your buddies still get together and talk about that ref that, you guys might have been in the NHL if you just won that sniper division. So it's pretty cool. I think it invokes so many emotions, as sport usually does.
I always love hearing from our guests, just hearing about that, that raw fun of growing up and playing street hockey. But I want to go back to that A+ answer that Vince graded you on. And you talked about how it's more than just a street hockey event, how you kept using the word festival, and that kind of resonated with me a little bit on how like cities and hosts, how to try to really take advantage of this tournament and grow it. And I just want to see from your side, just working with the city and you're hosting this, how you try to grow this into making more of a festival than just a street hockey tournament.
Yeah, I think that's it's a really good question, spurring from a really good answer, I guess. I think a lot of times people get hung up trying to make a festival experience, and they might try and imitate something from somewhere else or something that they've seen somewhere else. But I think my best advice for any city is, figure out what your niche is. If I was hosting an event in Hamilton, Ontario, I'd really focus on that arts and culinary scene and try and bridge that together. Like the food scene in Hamilton, Ontario is off the charts. So are the arts. And we started doing that with Play On, applying for Celebrate Ontario government grants and bringing in more diverse multicultural activities, music, song, dance, interpretation, whatever it was, working with community groups so that we could provide more people with a platform. I mean, sure, we're closing down the streets and parks for people to play hockey, but we have so much extra space, auxiliary space, and we know that people have multiple interests. Just because you play street hockey doesn't mean you don't like ballet or bagpipes. We've had some really cool performances, steel drums in different venues, and sometimes even just people just showing up into the park and walking on tightrope. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of cool when you bring these events into the community. Community just happens, and I always kind of took away from every event. It was kind of like, be so overwhelmed, it'd be going well, like you're going through and you're trying to make sure everyone's having a good time. And I would always I was never looking for it, and then it would just happen. And I would always call them like, oh, that was my event moment. Like you'd see a kid, and sometimes it could have been like a really cool goal or just the way someone reacted. Like a kid fell and scraped his knee, and his little buddy, they're 7 years old, goes over and the game's still going. He's like, are you okay? And I'm like, that's the moment. Like, that's my moment for the weekend. For every person that yells at me for a blown call, for the parent who's not getting enough value. I mean, for some of the bad stuff, there was so many more good moments that were happening around it. And I think that's the nature of sports. Like, I mean, can you even call yourself a Canadian if you haven't yelled at a ref at least once? Like, hey, look, bad calls might need attention every now and then. And we were, as officials in Play On, I'll represent we didn't have a union of officials back then, so we kind of just got thrown on whatever rink we were assigned to and jumped in. But it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's competitive, but it's not. But then maybe it gets a little bit competitive. But I mean, it's hockey and it's so much fun.
In your answer, I feel like it comes across as there's just a connection between everybody. If it's players, if it's officials, if it's sponsorship, or even organizers for each event. But I really wanted to ask you, what role can sport tourism officials play in making it a reality that Play On Canada returns to this spectacular event?
It's also a good question. I think when we're looking at we can look at play on, but I think we can go a little bit larger here and look at every sport and let's call it our kind of national return to sport plan. I think destinations are best suited to look at events that make sense for their market and look at their shoulder time of years and say, play on typically runs from the spring into the fall. Like, do we have some weekends where we don't have a lot going on? Can we drum up some visitation to our city? I think it's maybe understated because at the height of the program, Play On grew to 21 cities across the country. So we were in essentially every major market in Canada. And so it maybe seems like it's a community event because they're happening in so many places, but there's such a huge tourism component to it when you start to look at registration numbers. So I think you have to look at, where do people come from when they're visiting my city? Where do people come from when they're playing sport, when they're coming to my city? And can I manufacture something? And I think one of the coolest things when the program was when we had the Redwood Cup National Championship, and essentially each local or regional event was a qualifying event. So I would akin that to, if we're comparing it to golf, like the Canadian Open qualifiers or the US Open qualifiers. If you're male or female golfer and you want to qualify for each, you go to a regional competition. So in Ontario, we had a few events, and that elite competition was so fierce. And when the top two were only getting birth, you would see the last weekend in Ottawa, for example, the teams from London or Barrie or Hamilton that didn't qualify for the national championship staying in a hotel down in Ottawa so they could qualify and go compete for the Redwood Cup and the national championship prize. You'd have teams coming from out of town because maybe you're playing soccer or baseball in the summer or you got something going on and your friends can only get together the Hamilton weekend. So it's like, hey, let's make a weekend of it. Let's go somewhere else. Let's go up to Edmonton, even though we're from Calgary. So we started to see, people planning their weekends around it. I mean, go to Halifax, go to Edmonton, some of the cities were the largest events out in Vancouver, Burnaby. So many people year over year would come back, and it was really cool because you get to know the teams. And I was fortunate, when I worked for Play On, that I got to travel the country and go into each community and meet the players, meet the local franchisees on the ground, and met a lot of really great people along the way, and many of whom I'm still connected with today.
Now, Brandon, I'm going to shift gears a little bit in this podcast right now. We had some pretty heavy tourism chat here, but one thing I really noticed about you, Brandon, is that you bring that hard hat lunch pail to work every day. You jump over hurdles, you tackle any challenge that faces you. But one thing I heard, a courageous act that you did, was hopping on the mic and singing the national anthem at a play-on tournament. How crazy was that? Did you have the shaky knees, the sweaty palms? Did you hit your pitch? Tell me about the backstory of this.
I remember this. I remember this now, and it's so funny. And this connects back to that point, all other duties as assigned. And I think it was London. And for whatever reason, we didn't have an anthem singer that morning. And it was like, who's going to do it? Who's going to do it? I don't know if I put my hand up or if I was voluntold. It was, it was a long time ago. But I remember, and I said to Scott, my biggest fear was forgetting the words. And I just didn't want to forget the words. And I wasn't in front of him when I was just in a microphone behind the tent. So there wasn't really a gallery. Everybody was on the rink, and they're like, yeah. So I'm like to Scott, I'm like, just come stand near me and sing me through this so I don't forget the words. So I just jumped on the mic and sang the anthem, kind of blacked out. It was amazing. Like, I didn't pull any Mark Donnelly stunts. Mark had opened up a few of the play-on events out on the West Coast when he was available. So, and he's more of a showman. I was like, let's just get the words out. Let's get the day started on a high note. I think, if I recall, like after that anthem, I think the most goals recorded on a single day of play-on event were scored in that 8 a.m. game. So we'll have to check the stats, but a lot of people were fired up after that anthem call. So yeah, it was a good time. Right, you had to be there. You had to be there.
That is crazy. I know we had a guest, Lindsay Sproul, country singer, on the podcast, and we asked her, because everyone knows the lyrics to the Canadian national anthem. That's what you heard to start your day at school every single day. So about how nervous you were. Was there any point during the anthem where you thought you were going to stumble?
Yeah, I think you're not even a musician, so I was going to say fellow musicians or fellow singers. You might get that feeling where your cadence is here, but your mind is like the next verse down. And I think it was just like, don't screw it up. And then it just came naturally. I think there was more pressure ahead of the moment than actually in it, and you just like, I don't know, it just worked. I mean, probably the beneficiary of spending so many nights in the old London Ice House and the now Budweiser Gardens and
Been a
traveling to sports
karaoke
events.
star, are you?
I've been known to sing a song or two. I'm not sure who you might have been talking to for that. Yeah,
Our sources say.
yeah, I don't mind singing. It's better like when I'm in the truck by myself and not with an audience, but not bad.
Well, I'm sure you did a lot better than I would do. So you should be very proud of that. We're running out of time here, but the celebrity game is definitely a topic that we want to talk to you about. You have any memories playing in the celebrity game? And we heard you were a great goaltender, which we share a similar interest because I was goalie too. So that's very cool.
Yeah, the play on celebrity games for something else, and honestly, I love putting the pads on. I think I definitely wanted to be a goalie, and so putting the pads on was pretty cool. I think my best celebrity game memory was Niagara Falls National Championship Redwood Cup celebrity game. I'm on a team with Cal Clutterbuck of Minnesota Wild, and Cal's doing his thing, and I'm playing between the pipes, and we got a tight game, and I let in this goal, and I get like absolutely datsued by his name was Jeff. He's also a Brock Spima guy, and he's working with, I think, Career Later Canada in the CFL now. He's a really great guy, and he datsued me, like just completely undresses me and like one hands it by, and I'm like, holy, I'm looking at the Ferris wheel down on Clifton Hill, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's my jock strap. I'm like, frig, how are we going to get this one back? So the game's tied. It's like winding moments, and I'm like butterfly style, like Patrick Waugh, I love it. And I play left glove, so I got to shoot Cujo style, like I got to go backhand. So I make this glove save, and it's like dying moments, and I look up, and like I'm going like, I look up and I see Cal Clutterbuck. He's just cherry picking. He's just like, he's down there. He's wide open. I'm like, all I got is time. So I drop it. I don't even switch Cujo style. I just go left hand, just alley-oop over the crowd. Clutterbuck catches it, puts it down, scores game-winning goal, right off into the sunset. 0 contract offers from the NHL. Like, I don't know how you get an assist like that. Just backstop Cal Clutterbuck to a huge championship, and the guy hasn't even called me back yet either. So I don't know. It's just team
I don't
guy,
know
I
how
guess.
the Seattle Kraken didn't select you. That's after hearing that performance.
Yeah, I think I think the hockey world might need some time to dissect that. But I mean, my thoughts are, how don't you take Carey Price, who's from Vancouver? Like, let's just open up the U.S.-Canada border and sell a bunch of jerseys and tickets. But that's just the marketing and tourism side of me coming out, and not to mention he's one of the hottest goalies in the NHL. That kind of speaks for himself. So I'll always stand up for goalies. Fellow goalie, but. Those play-on games were so much fun.
Now, I want to play a little scenario with you. I hear Scott Hill could rifle a ball. Let's just say 10 shootouts. Scott Hill versus you. You're in the net. How many goals is Scott scoring? How many are you saving out of 10?
Yeah. Huh.
It's a tough one.
This is a tough one because Scott is good. Scott's good. Like, they're breakaways, right?
Yeah, this is pure shootout.
I'm going to give Scott 6 and me 4, just because I think that's the nice thing to do. But I actually think we should put the pads on and do it. Like, I'll give him minus 150 going into it. Give him the 6-4, but yeah, I think let's just take it to the street and settle it there. I'm sure Scott probably thinks he could get 8 or 9. So, and I'm probably thinking the same if I'm being honest. So
After
Scott can shoot the ball. He's left a lot of bruises. When we played ball hockey against each other, I would leave with a lot of welts, and he would always give that. He's so competitive and he's so nice at the same time, but he'll give you that little smirk when he knows he got you like with a good singer. I'm like, Scott, it's -2. Why are we playing with the red ball? He's like, because it'll hurt you more than it hits you. No. We always played with the appropriate Milek rated ball, but yeah, Scott can shoot. No hands though.
Judging by that Golden Glove save that you did to win the game, I think it might be tight. It might be a close one.
I would love to see it. A couple last questions before we wrap this up. What are your thoughts on the top 5 road hockey players in the country?
Yeah, this one, I'm glad you sent me this one in advance, because there's a lot of really good players. And so what I'm going to say is number 1 is definitely number 1, and then 2, 3, 4, and 5 are kind of like they're all in there together. And so the best player that I think to ever play in the country was Smitter Kaila. And Smitter was just an unbelievable ball hockey player, but I owe him one. I was reffing the semifinals out in Victoria, the Redwood National Championship, and Smitter's team is playing the home team Victoria CCP, and we're right in front of Parliament in Victoria, and there's the ball goes out because there's a crowd. We didn't put it back in, and so I dropped the ball, and I was like, we're going on the whistle. And I blew the whistle, and Smitter was looking at the other ref to blow the whistle, and I blew my whistle from this guy, and the guy in the Victoria CCP just scored right away. And I was like, and I swallowed, I hate blowing the whistle. You reffing the game, you just want to go. But Smitter, there's a picture, one of the photographers got it, and I'm just standing there with the whistle, and Smitter is just yelling at me. But he was one of the best, most competitive, best hands, nicest players. So he takes number 1. I finally get that off my conscience. One of those calls you miss as a ref, but super good. And then number 2, I'd go Nelson Vargas Diaz from Montreal. Number 3, Dampy Brar. Dampy's a much better community member than he is ball hockey player too, if I'm being honest. He's a recent Willie Award winner from the NHL for his work in the community. Number 4 might surprise some people, but I went with Justin D'Entremont, and honestly, this guy just had probably some of the most heart I've ever seen of any athlete, just blocking shots, laying it out there. They were one of those, grit grinder teams, brought the lunch pail to every event, traveled somewhere else if they needed to qualify, and just showed up every time. And then the 5th best hockey player, I'm going with Scott Hill here. And this isn't a suck up moment. This is so Scott might not be the best ball hockey player, but he lays it all out there. He's got a really wicked shot, but honestly, Scott Hill is the guy that took street hockey from Redwood Road in Kingsville, Ontario, where he played with his brothers and buddies, and brought it to 21 cities across the country and gave every one of us that's been connected through the program an opportunity to play street hockey professionally, essentially, or professional in our own right. And I think, that's admirable. And I love that Play-On's coming back right now. And the way I see it, it's good for these types of events to go away and come back sometimes to evolve. I think you'll see a lot of players that want to return. And I know Scott's doing a lot of work reaching out to communities and sponsors. And I kind of see, the time right now is like Scott saying, you know what, we're returning to sport, and to any community or any sponsor that wants to get involved, pretend your doorbell just rang and Scott Hill is just standing out on your doorstep with a hockey stick saying, do you want to come play hockey? And if it works for your business and it works for your community, it's a lot of fun. So I think that's super cool. And that's where the Redwood Cup obviously gets its name, Redwood Road. So there you go, Scott. I can now say, I'll probably stop 8 or 9, but I had to butter them up first. We can't leave them on red. But no, I think it takes a village. And I think even looking at that top 5, and you look at any team, when we focus on having fun and making it about the athlete experience or the individual experience, we all win. We know the pipeline and the funnel to get to professional sports, to the Olympics, to the WNBA, the NCAA. It's so narrow, but if we can use sport to to raise good children, to become good people in the community, to learn to give back, to volunteer, I think you're winning it. And you see that at play on events when you have 150 refs that volunteer their time or get paid a nominal fee, and have a lot of fun doing it and come back year over year. It's no different than community businesses supporting that local minor hockey team or soccer team. And, when we give people an opportunity to play, there's so much fun that we can have together.
It was amazing. Thank you, Branden. That was certainly cool to hear how Scott Hill cracked your top 5, and he has done some wonderful things for the sport and just bringing Canada together. And what's not to like about that?
Yeah, it's. I got paid to work in street hockey. Like, a lot of guys get paid to play hockey, but like, I got paid to play street hockey or to organize street hockey, and I think that's cool. It's kind of the fabric of communities. You see it a lot now, and you see the success that Play On, modeled itself around Gus Macker, NBA 3-on-3, evolving major mass production events, but doing it on a larger scale with 100-foot hockey rinks and a much larger footprint, and just continuing to evolve. And that's very much where we are now. We're looking at what is the evolution of outdoor sports, and let's call it outdoor sports and theatrics and entertainment. Let's create a buzz. Let's give people something to do and something to watch in your downtown core. Bring an event to your community and have some fun.
Well, we can't thank you enough for being on the podcast. I'm pretty sure the slogan of Brock is once a Badger, always a Badger, and once an intern for Play On, always family. So thank you so much for being on. Come back anytime. Click that subscribe button on YouTube because we want more subscribers on YouTube. So click it.